The hidden goddess, the banished and shattered goddess, the lost, the forgotten. Who was she? Who praised her name? And what fate befell her? There are no easy answers to these questions. Details have been erased and distorted over the centuries. Her altars have been toppled and her sanctuaries razed. She is cloaked in controversy, welcomed by few and opposed by many. Yet, despite the desperate attempts by reformers and zealots to erase her name from collective human memory, remnants of her reign linger, waiting to be discovered in the most unlikely of places, the Bible. To understand her story, we must for a moment go back to the beginning. Although scholars now date the earliest examples of goddess worship to approximately 25,000 years ago, our story began in the 2nd millennium BCE. Great civilizations had emerged along the Euphrates and Nile rivers. All powerful kings and pharaohs shaped the destiny of humankind. Empires rose and fell, combined and dispersed. For the common people of the era, survival was often incredibly difficult. Political turmoil, devastating poverty, and anxiety over the mysteries and danger that seemed to lurk around every corner permeated all aspects of life. The world was, as it had always been, in the midst of great change and evolution. To interpret the chaotic environment in which they lived, to glean from the unknown some sense of direction, the people of antiquity turned their thoughts to the higher realms of the gods and goddesses. Just as their ancestors before them, the people of the ancient Near East recognized the divinity of the natural world. They looked down at their feet and saw grass and grain sprout forth, and saw the goddesses of life and fertility. They looked up at the gathering clouds and saw the familiar face of the sky gods and life-bringing storm gods. They felt the celestial breath in every wind, every cry of a newborn child, and every turn of the seasons. Throughout the entire ancient world, men and women searched for meaning beyond themselves and found a host of gods and goddesses gazing back at them. A myriad of vibrant and beautiful mythology sprang from the ancient person's search for the divine. Every aspect of life and death was controlled by a ruling deity. These beings worked together and sometimes against each other to control and guide the development of the cosmos and of civilizations. And although the details frequently varied between empires, some forces emerged again and again. Among the most beloved and ancient was the Great Mother Goddess. Her name would change, her realm would grow and shrink, but for thousands of years her importance stood as testimony to her worth and power. The significance of goddess worship in the ancient world cannot be overstated. Men and women alike looked to the comfort of the Mother Goddess and petitioned her for blessings of love and progeny. Her role in the universe often reflected the role of mortal women. She was a mother, wife, daughter, and sister. She oversaw the fruits of agriculture, ran the house, and healed the sick and injured. From her body sprang not only children, but the earth itself. She was the foundation of the faith of millions. Recognizing the duality of nature and the need for both male and female energies, the Mother Goddess stood as an equal to the Father God for millennia. But in a rather unremarkable corner of the Near East, the idea of one true God had begun to grow. A small group of people were about to step off the well-worn paths of their ancestors and begin their own extraordinary journey. It was a journey that would, quite literally, change the course of humanity forever. Scholars and theologians have long debated the exact details of the founding of Israel and its radical monotheistic ideals. The historical truths have been lost to us through the centuries, due either to the simple passing of time or the revising of history by a host of biblical authors, often writing hundreds of years after the events they recorded. However, the Pentateuch, or first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible, provide an account of the forming of the Israelite nation as the people themselves believed it to have occurred. Once slaves in the land of Egypt, Moses, the prophet of the God Yahweh, had delivered the people from their bonds in an epic known simply as the Exodus. After their miraculous escape, the people wandered in the wilderness until finally they came to the base of Mount Sinai. Descending on the mountain as fire and smoke, Yahweh revealed himself to Moses and the assembly of fearful, awestruck people and delivered his laws and commandments for his newly amassed followers. Moses and Yahweh then formed a covenant declaring, among other things, that thou shalt have no other gods before me, and the foundations were laid for the three great monotheistic religions we know today: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Up until this moment in history, the earth and heavens had been filled with a host of gods and goddesses and other powerful divine creatures. Their existence was unquestioned. The very cycles of life were set into motion by the divinities. Yahweh, however, sought to dethrone these other supreme beings and set himself apart and above them. This was a profound shift in the dynamics of the cosmos. Within polytheistic religions, there had always been room for another god. Conquered nations often blended their own deities with those of their new masters, and vice versa. Some gods and goddesses were so powerful that their influence stretched across many nations and throughout hundreds of years. From this constant melding of people and ideals, new beliefs flourished and religious tolerance was natural. No one god or goddess set out to claim superiority, but Yahweh, the God of Israel, had declared himself king, above the reproach of man or God. Despite what some biblical adherents would like us to believe, the Israelite people did not spring from the dark ages of paganism fully formed and faithful to no God but Yahweh. Instead, they shared many of the same beliefs as their contemporaries in Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Canaan. Moses may have agreed to have no God before Yahweh, but it was a promise that his people often found difficult to abide by. Exodus 32 tells us that even before Moses came down from Mount Sinai, his people had cast a calf of gold to worship and give thanks to for their liberation from Egypt. Monotheism was a new and difficult concept to grasp, and the reign of the gods and goddesses would not be easily disposed. Although the Bible is clear that Yahweh transcends the bounds of gender, that his form is unknowable and crafted of pure spirit, he is unmistakably male in his depictions. Tell a Christian God's a woman, I dare you. The Hebrew language, the original language of the Bible, assigns a gender to every noun, pronoun, verb, and adjective. Without fail, the words used to describe Yahweh are unquestionably male, and no efforts were ever made to alter that perspective. To some extent, Yahweh's maleness was irrelevant. He simply absorbed the powers and characteristics of his rival gods. Yahweh undoubtedly filled the role of the father god for the Hebrews, just as El had done for the Canaanite people. But Yahweh did not stop with the conquest of the gods. He was the one and only, and there was no room for goddess in his heaven or earth. Unfortunately for Yahweh and the early champions of monotheism, the goddess would not easily be conquered. She would not relent her powers quietly to this new entity, and her followers would not cast her aside. The overarching maleness of Yahweh left a gaping void in the hearts of the people where once the divine feminine in all her incarnations had resided. No longer was there a great mother to nurture and guide her children. No longer did women appear as an equal complementary figure to men. Men were firmly in control of heaven, and below on earth, the patriarchy of the Hebrews was soundly in place. They corrupted the goddess's names, raised her groves, smashed her altars, and defaced her icons. And yet, she persisted. Scholars now understand that the Hebrew people worshipped a multitude of deities, especially the goddess in her various manifestations. This, of course, was utterly scandalous when the evidence first began appearing, and even today is vehemently denied by many of the faithful. But a careful reading of the Bible, especially the Old Testament, reveals that not only did the people retain parts of their pagan leanings, but that often these beliefs and practices fused with their worship of Yahweh. Especially among the common people, paganism blended with the one true God to form a plethora of varieties and flavors of Yahwism. And many of those focused on the goddess who filled the chasms left in a universe ruled solely by the masculine. Verse after verse in the Bible describes the early church leaders and rulers relentlessly trying to annihilate the worship of other deities. Often they appear to succeed. That is, until the next generation of Hebrews came into power and restored the ancient practices. It was a battle that was repeated again and again throughout the Bible. Eventually, Yahweh did prove victorious over the ancient pagan gods. The old beliefs had been twisted and perverted in such a way that the faithful began to fear the paths of their ancestors. The old gods seemed foreign and the goddess an abomination. Monotheism and patriarchy took firm control over the course of humanity, for better or for worse. The goddess had finally been destroyed, her domain fully assimilated by Yahweh. Or was she? Perhaps there is something in human nature that yearns for a great mother figure. Carl Jung, father of analytical psychology, certainly believes so. He saw the mother goddess as an archetypal figure, always at work in the human psyche. Archaeological evidence has shown that it was the goddess who first appeared when man turned his thoughts to the higher realms. For thousands of years she has walked among her children, mortal and God alike. Yahwism did, undeniably, a thorough job of extinguishing her hold on the people's hearts, but her seeds had already been planted. We see her shadow throughout the Bible and in the material remains of a people whose beginnings now lie in mystery and myth. She is there still, awaiting rediscovery, hidden but not dead. The divine feminine remains buried among the pages of countless authors in many subtle ways. She first emerges as the unknown wife of God, before being thoroughly dismantled within the Garden of Eden. And although her destruction was almost certain, she rises again as light and glory before birthing the child of God. She fills the spirit of the powerful and rebellious. Her symbols stand within paradise and the temple of Jerusalem. From the past, her names call out to us, from Asherah to Mary Magdalene, and her presence still lingers. If you'd like to learn more about the Hidden Goddess, then please take a look at our book, The Hidden Goddess, by Laurie Martin-Gardner, who also provided the words for this video. The Hidden Goddess delves into the Bible to uncover the goddesses that have been buried within it, as well as discussing familiar figures such as Eve and Mary. The book also features Asherah, Sophia, Lilith, and others, exploring their histories, their roles in early Judaic Christian belief, and their subsequent suppression. It's available from Moonbooks Publishing. Thank you so much for watching. A special thank you as always to our members. You too can become a member and gain early access to videos just like this one. Hit the join button for more information. Subscribe for weekly videos or ring the bell for notifications, and we will see you next time.